Yes, g'day and welcome to Club Prairie Fire Season 9, Episode 4. We are the home of tequila, Tabasco and the mighty Duckworth Lewis Stern System. This episode today I am calling Squaring the Ledger. Why am I calling that? Because last week, for those of you playing along at home, we had one of Australia's greatest and most devastating opening batsmen, Matthew Hayden, on to preview this most delectable of Test series. Well, today, with only one sleep until ball one, in the interest of remaining fair, reasonable and always impartial on this podcast, we welcome a legend from the other side, one of India's greatest ever batsmen and India's most successful captain ever, to walk us through what he thinks we're about to see in this mammoth Australia v India 5-match Test series. However, before I bring him in, let's welcome, well, normally it's two lads. Today it's only one because the other one's apparently stuck in traffic. I can't actually believe that. Please welcome Mr. Michael Vaughan. Vaughany, how are you?
Yeah, cheers, guys. Yeah, I've managed to get to Perth from Melbourne, and Gilly lives in Perth, and he's stuck in traffic. So make of that whatever you want. But great to have Sourav. Sourav was what a captain, what a player. We had some nice battles, particularly when he won a one-day game at Lord's, when he took his shirt off and he waved it around his head, which is memorable scenes from Lord's. But great to have him on. Ollie, nice to see you.
Right, well, let me just say this very quickly. Let's not waste any more time. Please welcome a man some called the Maharaj, some called him Dada. He is the god of the offside and the Prince of Calcutta, Mr. Sourav Ganguly.
Thank you. Good to be on your show. Great to see all of you, especially Michael. And I've played a lot of cricket with him, a lot of regard for him as the way he captained England and the way he batted in Australia, in England. We did beat him in 2007 in the series where he used a lot of jelly beans as captain. And then in 2002, the NatWest, he was a young player then and still trying to find his feet. Nasir was the leader and some great memories. You know, I've seen him from young and the under-19s and then the A cricket, and was so happy to see the way his career progressed and what he has become. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
Hey, Sourav, there's not many guests come on and give me a sledge within the first 5 seconds. It's a good effort, man. I'd forgotten about the jelly beans.
See, probably you'll not call me on this show again, so this is the only chance I have.
Oh, don't you worry. We'll be ringing you over the next few weeks with this series that's about to start in Perth. The Indian they've been practicing, Sarah, behind closed doors. No one's really seen them. They've had a lot of kind of shielding. I can see the whacker from my room here, and I know they've been practicing there. Any reason why they wouldn't want anyone to see them practice?
I don't know, Michael. I think it's very hard for me to answer that question. My surprise is how can somebody be shielded in such a big open ground like Waugh? So if they have done that, they must have really done a good job to get away from everyone. I think a lot is also with the fans and what they attract everywhere they go. So they want to be left alone and want to practice on their own. But I hope they're having a good session, because gone are the days when you and me went to foreign countries and played a couple of warm-up matches before the start of the first test to get used to the conditions and get ready. So they just straight away get into the match situation after hitting a few balls in the nets. So the game has changed over a lot. So for me, it's very hard to answer why. Probably they want to stay away from the fans getting too close to the nets, because sometimes it gets a bit difficult to handle them. And I think that's probably one of the reasons.
I mean, sorry, is it that we're getting old, or is it just the modern player is completely different? Because I look at the whacker here, and I look at England in 12 months' time coming down under for the Ashes, and I'll be begging England to play at least one 4-day game against Australia, play a tough game of cricket, play it at the whacker on a bouncy pitch, and try and win. Get used to, obviously, the consequence of being out in the middle, and also the consequence of the result at the end of the 4 days. I know they're a different breed these days, but do you agree with an inter-squad game before a big series like this one?
No, I'm an old school like you, and I actually believe in preparation, especially when you go to Australia and England. It's okay when you go to Pakistan or Sri Lanka or Dubai or conditions, which is similar to India. But when you go to England, when you go to Australia, when you go to New Zealand or South Africa, I think it's important that you play at least 1 4-day competitive game before you get into the main test matches, because the conditions are different, the feet movement are different, the body is used to playing differently, so you have to get used to it. Having said that, I understand that during your and my time, although towards the second half of my career, it started happening a lot more. We started going back to England and Australia a lot more than it happened in my first half of my career. I remember going to Australia in 92 and then going to Australia again in 1999. So in 7 years, I've been there once. But these blokes, they were there in 2019, 2021. Now they are in 2024. So in 5 years, they've been there thrice. Thrice. So obviously they go a lot more than what it used to be in the past. They do play a lot of cricket. So there's not enough time in between tours to do that. So I understand where they're coming from. And I think for all of us here, we have to accept that the game has changed. The game has changed and players' mindset has changed. And when you ask this question to a current player, the answer will be, probably we don't need so much time to get acclimatized and just go and get going straight away. It keeps us fresh. It keeps the tour short and comfortable, because I remember going to Australia for 3.5 months, 4 months, and I'm sure the same with you. And these days, 4 test matches finish in a month. So 4 or 5 test matches. So times have changed and you have to accept that.
Yeah.
Sourav, we have on this show, he's a bit of a fact checker. That's one of Ollie's roles. Ollie, first of all, have you found out what jelly beans Michael Vaughan used in 2007?
Yeah.
Obviously, you were typing away on that.
Yeah, the yellow ones were the most helpful.
Okay.
I think they're lemon. Yeah, Vaughany.
Terrific.
Likes the most.
And secondly,
Sourav, did you realise, Ollie, we lost that series?
Yeah.
So it didn't really help us as much as some other series where we use jelly babies.
Now, the other thing is that we do have a little sponsor that helps pay for this little show. Ollie, I'll bring you in just to explain what that is.
Well, it's perfect timing, because sort of you were talking there about, you touring less, and it's Cricket Australia's travel office, and they help do packages and hotels and special events for. They're looking at the Ashes next year, but they've still got some for this Border Gavaskar Trophy. And every time we get a guest on, we just ask for their sort of favourite memory of touring Australia that stands out from. It can be on the field or off the field. Last week, Matty Hayden talked about Andrew Simon squaring up to Kevin Peterson, telling him he's not tough even though he's got tattoos everywhere. And Gilly shared a story how Monty Panesar nearly made him retire when he got him out very cheaply. So is there anything from their tours, I think you mentioned 92 to 99, that you loved or really remembered about Australia and touring with India?
I've been to Australia a number of times, and I just wouldn't restrict myself to 92 to 99. I think in 2003, we had a young keeper in Parthiv Patel who was 17-year-old, and we were playing the 4th test in Sydney, and Australia were battling to save the test series because they had to chase 500 in the last innings on the 5th day of the 4th test, and that was Steve Waugh's last test match. And I remember Parthiv Patel sledging Steve Waugh, because he knew that if we could get Steve Waugh out, we would win not only the test match, but the series as well, because we beat them in Adelaide, and we actually dominated Australia, those 4 test match series in 2003 as captain, and I was captain. And I remember Steve turning up and telling to Parthiv, when I started playing, you were not even born. And a young Parthiv, 17-year-old, was jumping up and down and sledging Steve with the ball spinning on Sydney on day 5. And Steve was captain his last test match. So that banter went on for a while. And then Steve tolerated him for a few overs and then turned back and said, mate, when I first played test cricket, you were not even out of your mom's stomach. So I still remember that, and we couldn't stop laughing. I remember when Parthiv landed in Australia in 2003, the immigration person mistook him as the manager's son, on a holiday trip to Australia, because he was so young and so small. But then we had to say, he's a second wicket keeper who went on to become a first keeper on the tour because of the way he played. So great memories of that country. It's a great country to play cricket, although I still feel England is probably the best place to play cricket. And we loved Australia, going around places like Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide. It's a great country, and I played against some very strong Australian team, and Michael will agree that the team led by Steve Waugh during that generation was bloody good. And I remember Harbhajan telling me at Eden Gardens, a young Harbhajan, he said, I've got everybody out, and then I see Adam Gilchrist coming out to bat at number 7. So that's how good they were, and they were a great cricketing nation, and it was a pleasure touring that part of the world.
Fantastic.
Hey, Sourav, just on Steve Waugh, Sourav, I think Gilly mentioned, I think it was the 2001 series that you managed to win. It was, I think, the VVS Laxman partnership in Calcutta. Is it correct that you used to make Steve Waugh wait at the toss for a few minutes? Were you always a little bit low?
No, I think what happened was I was under a lot of pressure that series because it was my first big series as captain, and we lost the first test. So I remember coming out at Eden Gardens for the toss. I was so much under pressure to get the squad right because Kumble dropped out of the series because of a shoulder injury. Srinath had a shoulder operation, so we were literally playing new bowlers every test. And I remember that morning at Eden Gardens, before coming out to toss, I was so confused of whether to play X or Y that I forgot my blazer for the toss. And I walked out with the team with 10 players written on it. And I was captain. I said to John, I said, leave that with me and I'll take a call as I walk past the ropes. And then I realized as soon as I came to the ropes, Steve was waiting there and my blazer was inside the dressing room. So I had to send somebody to go and get the blazer, and I was writing the 11th player, the spinner, the new spinner in that squad, whether I wanted a left-arm spinner or I wanted another off spinner. And I literally put that 11th name very close to Steve when I was just about to toss. So then obviously I was late for a couple of minutes, and Steve Waugh was upset. You know how Steve is. And they had won 16 test matches in a row, and they were wanting to win the 17 and be the best ever. They had never won in India, so they knew that, they had to win in India to complete the circle. They termed that series as the final frontier in 2001. We followed on in the first innings in Kolkata and then went on to win the test match on day 5. So, the world turned upside down over a period of 5 days. So first one was a coincidence. Then I realized that Steve, both the Steves, Steve Waugh and Steve Buckner, were very, very upset with the loss and irritated with what happened. And I think a lot had to do because of them losing the test after being asked to follow on, which was, I think, they couldn't even believe in their dreams. Then we went to Chennai and the series got heated up. In those days in India, if you would come to India, we were such good, we used to welcome our guests so well that we used to ask them to write columns. And I'm sure you must have experienced in your career as an opening batsman of England, that the columns were always used to be against the opposition captain and the best opposition player, how they're going to get them out, how useless they are, and how good the Aussies were. So all this went on before a series, and that actually got everybody going. And by the time we went to Chennai, it was 1-1. Australia was under a bit of pressure. Then I realized that, if you keep doing this, because, they had Vaughany, they had McGrath, they had Hayden, they had Waugh, they would just get stuck with you. The very well-behaved Adam Gilchrist, I hope he's reached the show. He was a gentleman, but when it came to chirping from behind, he would do it as well.
So, I agree.
Yeah. The world thought that he was the most gentleman. He was, but when it came to chirping, he was not too far behind. So, and there was the Andrew Simons who came in later. I remember standing at Silly Point in Chennai against Vaughany in Australia, where he came out to bat with the ball spinning and bouncing. And we had a laugh at Vaughany as soon as he took strike. So he came up to me and said, you know how Vaughany is, why are you laughing? I said, we're expecting you only to play 2 or 3 deliveries. And he handled the ball and got out. He played the first ball, he defended it and was rolling onto the stumps. He picked it up with his hand and gave it to us and he was out. So by the time we went to Chennai, the series was absolutely at its best in terms of what was going on the field. And I remember walking out to bat at Eden Gardens. I got some runs in the second innings and I played the first ball of Glenn McGrath. And he said, your name's written on the scoreboard and you lose your captaincy by the time the next test match comes. So, and then we managed to beat them by the end of 5 days. So it was always very competitive, always very edgy. I have tremendous respect for Steve Waugh, the player he was and the way he batted under pressure for Australia. Number 5, fantastic. I still see him at times and a great player for Australia. I wouldn't call a fantastic player, but a great player for Australia. So little bit happened, and then it turned on. They kept losing. When they lose, they're not the best, and that continued. It was a long series and well followed series, and things took a little different turn, but all finished at the ground. Once you left the ground, it was all over.
Incredible. Some amazing stories there for CATO. Thank you. It's funny you say that about Gilly being, Evan. He's such a gentleman, but he chirps because he's just sent a message talking about that 2003 series. He says, "Can you please tell Sourav that I think his 144 in Brisbane is one of the best momentum-changing innings ever in the history of cricket." So there's the compliment. So maybe he'll send a chirp in a minute, but that's his memory of 2003.
And before it was the first test of the series in Brisbane, and before we landed, we were practicing, we played warm-up matches. All we heard was how quick the Aussie bowlers were, how fast the surface was Brisbane, how the test match is going to finish in 3 days. We are going to hear the chin music. All this went on, and by the time the day 3 was over, Australia was under pressure to save the test. And that's how they played their cricket, and that's how they were a great team. And many people asked me that, was it the sledging? I said, no, it just cannot be the sledging. It's the sledging plus the quality they had, and Michael will agree. He played against that Australian side for the best part of his career. I still remember his 3 back-to-back test hundreds in the Ashes. Michael, it was 2001 or 2002?
2-3.
2003, yeah. And then we went after that. So I saw how well he played in Australia during that period. And they were a great side. He'll agree, a great bowling attack. Gillespie, I played Gillespie, McGrath, Lee, and Vaughan.
Yeah.
And that's a serious bowling attack. So they were a great side. It's not just the sledging and the quality of players they had. Ponting, Langer, Hayden, Gilchrist, Martin. A serious cricket side.
Now, being a proud Australian, I agree with you 100%. Sourav, chirping is a way of our life here. We have a go at everybody. That's just what we do. We have been chatting a lot about this current test series in the shows leading up to this one. Both Michael, who's on the podcast now, and Gilly, who was too worried to show up, have predicted Australia to win and to win comfortably. Now,
3-1, Prof. 3-1.
That's comfortable.
No. 3-1.
So, Vaughany, do you want to explain to Sourav why you think the Aussies will win 3-1?
Well, I think they'll win in Perth because of the prep. The Australians haven't been playing a lot of cricket, but I think they'll cope with the bounce in Perth a little bit better. Australia have won every day-night game at the Adelaide Oval, so I have to back Australia there. Brisbane, I'm not too sure because Shamar Joseph did for Australia in Brisbane. Melbourne, I think Brisbane and Melbourne, that's India's chance. I think they'll be 2-0 down. That's my prediction. And then it all depends in Brisbane what they can get out of there. Sydney will be rained out. It always is. So really, it's the first 4 test matches. I just think Australia had the better hand on those games.
Sourav?
Let's see. I don't rule it out. When they went in 2021, I was the president of the board. And we got all out for 36 in Adelaide. And we lost Kohli. And by the time we went to Brisbane, there was no Kohli, no Rohit Sharma, no Jasprit Bumrah, no Ravichandran Ashwin. And these boys came back and beat a top-notch Australian side. So there's tremendous talent in India. And I wouldn't predict the series yet because, to be honest, when you went in 2017 and 2021, we beat them both the times. With not many of them giving a chance. Michael has been working with Australian cricket so closely. Did anybody think on the day 5 in Brisbane when India had to get 330, Rishabh Pant played that knock and won them? Not just Pant, there was Washington Sundar, there was Shardul Thakur, there was Shubman Gill who contributed for India to win. So the talent in India is tremendous.
On those series, I mean, you were involved in the last one, as was Virat at the start. He was the captain, so it was kind of his mentality on the field. The previous one, Virat was the captain. Ravi Shastri's been the coach on the last 2 tours here, and I just think he's such a charismatic leader. Virat wasn't captain in 2021, Michael.
Virat had gone home after the first test.
No, but he arrived and then he went home. He went home after the first test, didn't he, for the birth of his first.
And he didn't come back.
No, but it was still his team. That's his mentality. It was kind of the team playing in his kind of style. And Ravi was the coach. And I just look at this Indian setup and thinking, who are the real charismatic leaders? And you know yourself, when you play Australia, you've got to have that oomph about you. You know, you had it in abundance. Virat's had it in abundance as a leader. And I'm just looking here at the Indian side and the coach, the new coach, Gautam Gambhir. I wish him well, but he looks a little bit, looks like he gets spiced up with any comment in the media. I'm intrigued to know how they're going to find that energy and that buzz out in the middle, which they've had on previous tours.
You know, Michael, these young boys are different. You know, the likes of Pant, the likes of Gill. I know Bumrah will lead the first test in the absence of Rohit. I consider him a very gifted because, you know, not only in terms of bowling, but also the way he thinks about the game. You know, Washington Sundar's back. There's Ravichandran Ashwin as a bowling unit. There is, you know, I will not rule this out. I can't put a finger on the button and say this is the way they are going to do it. But you know, they have surprised many. You know, imagine the last two World Cups. I know they didn't play well against New Zealand. I'm a non-believer on playing on such turning pitches because it takes Indian batting away. You know, in the last two World Cups, 23 and 24, they've just lost one game in the entire 20-match World Cup they have played. So under pressure, they stand up. The 50-over World Cup, they just lost to Australia in the final and then went to T20. The West Indies won every game to win the World Cup. So under pressure, these boys stand up, these young boys. And I wouldn't rule them out. Like you said, the conditions, Perth. Don't rule India beating Australia in Perth as well, Michael. You know, I remember in 2007 when we went, we beat Australia in Perth. And why I say don't rule them out because, you know, you need 20 wickets to win test matches. And with little bit of helpful conditions, the likes of Bumrah and Shiraz and Prasidh Krishna, they become wicket-taking bowlers. I'm better off playing them on flat pitches where there is no movement and there's no pace and no bounce because they're different. But when it comes to seam and bounce and pace, they just get that little bit better than what they are. Good, helpful bowling conditions. So don't rule them out to get Australia dismissed 200 in one of the innings of a test match. You know, Pakistan beat Australia in the recent T20 in recent one-day series. I know it's a one-day series. Australia was not playing their best team. A lot of them were rested, but still Pakistan beat them. You know, Haris Shroff bowled exceptionally well on those pitches to beat them. So I will never rule India out. I know you divided Adelaide, Perth, Brisbane. It might well be that by the time Adelaide finishes, it's 1-1, and then you go to Brisbane and Melbourne and Sydney, and the series get decided. If you look at 2017, it rained in Sydney, and India was on the verge of winning that test as well. Was on the verge, so they could have won that series 3-1. So from that point of view, I will not rule this team out because there's fearless players. There are some fearless players, and let's keep the fingers crossed. I think it's going to be a fascinating series. Whether permitting all 5 test matches, we'll have a decision. And it can go any way.
I think the big question over here is the 2 batting lineups. Obviously, the Australian lineup with Smith at 4, it still looks vulnerable. But Virat Kohli, you know, what you've seen of Virat of late, do you feel that he can find the form that we've seen so often when he arrives in Australia?
I never rule great players out. You know, he hasn't had the best of times in test matches. He's landed in Australia early. He's hungry. He knows that he has a reputation to keep. He will be playing on good pitches. He has 6 test hundreds in Australia of the 13 he has played. I know that was 4 or 5 years ago. It was a young Virat Kohli. He's aging, but don't rule out. You know, I've seen Rahul Dravid. He didn't have an overseas 100 from 2007 to 2011, and then he went to England. I met him one day at Lord's. I was commentating. I had just finished a year ago. And I asked him, mate, how long are you going to play? And he said, I still believe I can do it. I still believe I can get runs, and I'll play till I keep scoring runs. He got 400s in 4 Test matches. Never got 100 the previous 4 years away from home. England, and he opened that series, if you remember, Michael, in 2011. And he's a number 3 batter. They pushed him up to open, and he got 4 test hundreds in 4 Test matches. So someone like a Dravid or a Kohli or a Vaughan or a Waugh, I will not rule them out ever till they keep playing the game. So because there's so much quality, so much class, and I'm backing Kohli. He'll be hungry. He knows that his reputation has not been at his best for the last 8-9 months. I'm sorry. Don't rule him out.
Did that just make your day, Vaughany, that you were thrown into that list?
There was a nice list there. I think he's just been very kind. So now, just tell us
he could play. I think he finished a bit early. I think Vaughany finished too early, maybe because of his knee wasn't holding up. But he still had good 3 years for England.
Yeah, my knee wasn't great, and I wanted to play a bit of golf, Sourav. Now, tell us, you're in Dubai. They're preparing for the IPL auction, which is at the weekend. You're the boss of Delhi, is that right? You're the supremo. You're in charge.
Little bit.
We're with the team, and if you need any new team members, I know I've got a couple on this show. If you want to sell yourself, lads, to be a part of the Delhi team for the IPL in 2025, you've got a pitch. Go on, pitch yourself to Sourav. What can you do to him? What can you bring to his team?
If you wanted a really low-budget podcast to surround the team and the tournament, I can host, and Ollie can look up facts about the Delhi Capitals, I guess. Ollie, have you got something better than that?
Well, I played minor counties Cambridgeshire twice when I was 13 before I got hit for, quote, the biggest 6 ever seen in the region. And then I got the yips bowling off spin. So another spinner, if you would like, I can offer. Yeah.
We'll discuss that another day.
That's a no. So come on, give us an insight into what you do now in Dubai, leading into the IPL auction in a few days in Saudi.
Obviously, the auction is different, Michael. It's a different beast. You have to be fluid. You have to keep your options open. You cannot just go in with the mindset of I'm going to have this player, which you can do as England captain or India captain. But you can't do that in an IPL auction. So you have to be fluid. You'll have to keep options open, and then take a call on the table, because most of it is ruled by the price, and demand. Many of the teams have retained the best players, so about 54 of them are gone already before the auction starts. They're retained. So you just have to be fluid and see what is available on the table, and take decisions with the balance of quality, your team needs, and the price point as well.
Now, you mentioned retained. Rishabh, he wasn't retained. You've got £7.5 million to spend. How big a cheque have you got for Rishabh? Is it, what size are we talking?
We'll see, Michael, because he will obviously go for a lot of money. Rishabh, Shreyas, Rahul, they'll go for a lot of money. Whichever team wants will have to pay a lot of money because of the demand of Indian players. The teams will also have to make a squad. So it's not just one player. It's about the 14 or 15 first, and then the backups to complete a 20 member squad. So making the entire squad will be on the first in the mind, and then balance out the price and the players and everything. So it's not that easy. I found picking teams for India a lot easier, because you had the best available. There was no competition. You just picked them and you moved on. But picking IPL teams are not easy. So I don't think nobody of the 10 franchise can put a finger and say that I want this and I'm going to get this. It never happens. You just have to keep options open and decide and take a decision on what the market force you to do.
Sourav, I'm sure I keep a close eye sort of on cricket around the world, and there was something that caught my eye recently. India have been playing South Africa in that T20 international series, and the thing that I caught my eye was in the third T20 International, it was suspended due to a sex attack by flying ants, which was one of the weirdest headlines I've ever seen when the people went off. And then they came back on, and India once again, Sanju Samson, a fantastic knock again. Have you been watching that sort of series closely and to see some of those other names who aren't involved in Test who could be big stars?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen it. I would obviously say that South African attack was something which you will lose sleep over. There was no Rabada, there was no Nokia, there was no Ngidi. So Kudzi got injured after the first couple of one days, first couple of T20 matches. So it wasn't the strongest South African bowling attack. But as I said to Michael, these young Indians can surprise everybody. And I say that for Australia as well. So they're so good. They're exposed at the top level. They play a hell of a lot of cricket. Our cricketing system is as good as it can get to anywhere in the world. And a majority of these boys are ready for the top level. So I wasn't surprised with the win in South Africa, and especially the way they bowled, the spinners and the quicks. Beating South Africa in the last one-day game by almost 100 runs. More than 100 runs is a monumental effort in T20 cricket. So, and that's why I say that don't rule India out in Australia.
Yeah. So I don't want you to, and I know you won't give us any names who you're going to go for at the weekend. But will we see any England players or Australian players getting on the plane?
Yeah, of course. There are quite a few.
Is there a few on your list you might go for? And is one 42 years of age and swings it a little bit from Lancashire?
Vaughany, I hope the knee is holding okay. You've got to do a bit of running. And I think I enjoy your broadcasting more. So I think you
might be getting me mixed up with Jimmy Anderson.
Oh, thinks you're 42.
I'm looking forward to that with Jimmy Anderson. Let's see who gets him.
Yeah, do you think he'll get picked up?
Oh, he's a great cricketer, Mike. So I don't want to disrespect him. Let's see where it goes.
Do you have any idea, Sourav, who do you think will command the highest fee? Can you take a guess, or is it Rishabh?
I think Rishabh, Shreyas, Rahul, they will all go for a lot of money. The Indians, then there's Ishan Kishan, they generally go for a lot of money. There's Butler on the list. There's Phil Salt on the list, who I think is a serious T20 player. So there are quite a few good ones on the list, but at the same time, it cannot be too many very high price because they have to build the overall squad. The high prices have gone in retentions, and the rest will have to be balanced properly.
So you've got 7.5 million left to spend, and how many players have you got to spend it on? How many
15,
more do you need?
Minimum 15.
So you've got 15 slots to fill in your squad.
Yeah, and most of them have.
Yeah.
Punjab has a lot more to fill, but Punjab has a lot more purse to fill. So,
can you explain? I mean, I don't agree with the IPL auction taking place during the Test match, Sourav. Is there a reason why that it's taken place? I think it's on days 3 and 4 here in Perth. Couldn't we have waited another week when we've got that gap in between the first and the second Test match? I just think it's a bit of a distraction for the players and the game in general, the Test match here in Perth.
The majority of the players, Indian players, will get picked. Most of them will get picked, depending it's how much. It's how much, and most of them will go for a lot of money. So I really don't see it to be a distraction because they know they'll get picked and they know they're going to get a good bit in the bank. So I don't think it should be a distraction. But there's so much around. There's a women's IPL to be picked. The auctions, the teams need time to prepare. The players, the domestic players need to be looked at. So looking at everything, it invariably happens every year. And there's so much cricket all around the world that whether you do it in November, whether you do it in December, whether you do it in January, there's some cricket going somewhere. So it's very hard to say that there'll be no cricket and completely do it at that time and to keep the distractions away. It's something which the modern day players will have to live with it. It's like when we played Test cricket, we knew the teams are picked for 2 Test matches, especially when you're in the home series. On the 3rd or the 4th day of the second Test, the team for the 3rd, 4th, 5th Test matches will have to be selected. So your mind is on that as well. So it's just different formats and different tournaments.
Sourav, I am conscious of the time here. You've
thank
been
you.
more than generous with it. So thank you very much for coming on the pod today. Vaughany, was there anything you wanted to say to Sourav to finish up here?
No, great to have you on, Sourav. I know it's been a bit of a difficult communication in terms of networks, and we've had 24 hours to wait to get you on, and Gilchrist is stuck in traffic. But thank you. We'll get you on again once the series is up and running for a little bit of an update of the series, of what's gone on and who's doing what, if that's okay. But good luck spending money at the weekend. Must be great. Have a load of cash and just bidding on players to get your paddle going.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Have a great tour of Australia, and hopefully we'll meet up in the summer in England.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you need an off spinner, don't rule out Ollie. Don't rule out Ollie if you want someone for a couple of quid.
Just cheap.
He's very cheap. Yeah, super cheap.
All three of you, look after yourself, give my love to your family, and enjoy your time.
Thank you,
Thank you so much, Sourav.
Thank you. Now, just a reminder, you can find us at Club Prairie Fire. That is everywhere. That's YouTube, TikTok, that's Instagram, the whole lot. You are right, Vaughany. What a great, fun time that would be, just to have a big old purse full of cash.
Get the paddle going. Just getting the paddles going and just kind of bid for anybody. Do you like my cat, by the way? It's Melonhead from Coogee, the Cooge.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's the you get all your smoothies and your yogurts, protein shakes in the morning. It's fantastic. It's on the hill on the Cooge. Beautiful.
Have they got a something going where if you shout out CPF when you walk in, do you get a free banana smoothie or?
Well, they gave me this cap.
Okay.
So that's what I got. Yeah, I got my cap. I got my every morning my muscle shaker, and I got a cap for it.
Very good. I want to say, gents, you were both very good on this pod. I thought Gilly was a little quiet than he normally is.
Where is he?
Mate, one of the biggest names in international cricket, and he bloody doesn't show up.
And how good was he? How good was Ganguly? Coming in with a sledge on Vaughany in the first 30 seconds. I knew it was good.
And Gilly's got to be careful, because I think we'll get a lot of numbers for this one. And it's nothing to do with us three.
Did we want to do a toast? I know it's normally Gilly's thing.
Let's toast I'd say I'm going to toast. I've got nothing to toast, and I'm going to tequila, and I've got a glass. But I'm going to toast the Waugh. What a ground. What a ground the Waugh is. The Waugh. This is where England should be playing a 4-day game against Australia A. I'm going to say 9 days before the first test in Perth. Batter them on that venue. Get ready for the Ashes properly. On.
All right. So is it to the Waugh or is it to warm-up games?
To the Waugh. To the what?
Warm-up games or the Waugh?
Well, just the Waugh, but get out there and win and beat Australia A leading into the A. Just hammer them. Embarrass them.
Beautiful. All right. That was Club Prairie Fire. We'll see you soon, gents.
Yeah.
Good guys. Cheers, guys.
Well, remarkably, you've watched the show. Thank you. That's all I can say. And if you really like it, press something, I don't know, something on the screen, press it, or subscribe. That'd be really handy. It'd be really nice. Thank you.